Meghan Markle's failed plan to bag a billionaire as her marriage to Prince Harry becomes more unhappy by the day.
Once celebrated as a global playground for elites, Dubai has now delivered a stunning rebuke that no one saw coming. When doors quietly closed and invitations mysteriously vanished, one name echoed through palace-like halls: Meghan Markle. Insiders claim the snub was deliberate, strategic, and deeply personal. What triggered such a dramatic shift, and why did it provoke an alleged outburst behind the scenes? As rumors swirl and tempers flare, one question dominates: what did Meghan do to make Dubai say no? The fallout shocked observers worldwide. The Dubai moment. It was supposed to be smooth and almost invisible, a quiet arrival that would pass without headlines or hurried whispers. According to several commentators, Meghan Markle touched down in Dubai in early February 2026, expecting exactly that kind of treatment. Not red carpets or flashing cameras, but the calm, efficient handling often given to well-known figures, whose presence fits comfortably within a country's carefully managed image and interests. What she encountered instead was something far colder: silence. Dubai is not known for public scenes or loud refusals. The city has built a reputation on controlled elegance, where decisions are made discreetly and messages are delivered without noise. In this case, there was no spectacle at the airport, no raised voices, no security standoff, just a routine pause, a quiet escort to a private room, and a short internal review that ended with a polite but firm decision. Entry denied. Within hours, the moment was over. No photographs surfaced. No official announcement was released. No spokesperson stepped forward to explain. Meghan was reportedly placed on a return flight, leaving the city almost as quietly as she had arrived. For Dubai, that was the end of the matter. For the rest of the world, it was only the beginning. What surprised many observers was not the refusal itself. Under United Arab Emirates law, immigration officials are granted wide discretion at the border. Entry is not a right even for famous names, and decisions do not require public justification. Countries regularly make such calls behind closed doors, especially when reputational, political, or strategic considerations are involved. In that sense, the denial, while unusual, was not shocking. What truly caught attention was what reportedly happened next. Rather than turning first to American diplomatic channels, which would have been the expected route given her citizenship status, Meghan allegedly sought help through British royal connections. That single move, critics argue, shifted the entire story from a quiet immigration matter into something far more sensitive and symbolic. To some, the decision raised uncomfortable questions. Why reach for royal ties after years of carefully distancing herself from royal life? Why involve an institution she had publicly criticized, especially in a foreign jurisdiction known for valuing clarity and protocol? Commentators suggest that this step may have blurred lines Dubai prefers to keep sharply defined, between private individuals and state-linked institutions, between former roles and present realities. From that perspective, Dubai's silence became its loudest statement. There was no correction, no clarification, no effort to soften the narrative. The city did not argue its case or defend its choice. It simply moved on. In a place where restraint is often used as a form of authority, the lack of response spoke volumes. Meanwhile, the global reaction was anything but restrained. Speculation spread quickly across social media and news platforms. Some framed the incident as a personal snub, others as a geopolitical signal. Supporters questioned the fairness of the decision, while critics pointed to a long trail of public controversies, strained relationships, and image fatigue. Every side read meaning into the same quiet act. For many watchers of royal and celebrity culture, the episode felt symbolic, a reminder that fame does not guarantee access, that influence has limits. And that doors, especially in places like Dubai, do not always open just because someone expects them to. In the end, Dubai never raised its voice. It didn't need to. A calm refusal, delivered without explanation, was enough to spark a global conversation. The city returned to business as usual, while the world debated motives, messages, and missteps. The irony is hard to miss. What was meant to be a low-key arrival became a high-volume discussion. What was handled quietly on the ground echoed loudly across continents. Dubai's message was subtle, controlled, and final. The world's reaction was anything but. How did the royal palace respond to the humiliating moment Meghan Markle witnessed? Did the royal palace feel humiliated by that moment? Let's delve into the moment when the palace ended royal ambiguity. Buckingham Palace draws the line. Within just 24 hours, Buckingham Palace broke its silence. And it did so in a way that left little room for speculation. There were no leaks, no anonymous briefings, no dramatic flourishes. Instead, there was a short, carefully worded statement attributed to Prince William. What made it powerful was not what it said at length, but what it ended decisively. The tone was calm, restrained, and unmistakably firm. Royal watchers immediately noticed that this was not a message meant to invite dialogue or further interpretation. It was a line drawn neatly, publicly, and with purpose. In the understated language the palace is famous for, the message carried a very clear meaning. Meghan Markle does not speak for the British crown. Not now. Not in any situation. Not under any circumstances. According to royal analysts, the statement stripped away every remaining layer of ambiguity. Marriage to a prince, being a mother to royal children, or once holding a duchess title, did not translate into official authority. None of these factors granted diplomatic weight. None allowed representation. And none implied protection beyond what is normally available to any private citizen. If help was ever needed, the responsibility would rest squarely with standard United States consular services, nothing more, nothing less. This was not just a reminder of protocol. It was something deeper and far more symbolic. It marked the closing of a door that had been left slightly ajar since 2020, when the Sussexes stepped away from royal duties. For years after that departure, a strange gray area existed. Titles were no longer active, yet they were still used. Royal language was officially retired, yet subtly echoed. Connections were said to be cut, yet symbolic links lingered in interviews, branding, and global appearances. That uncertainty fed public debate. Was Meghan still royal adjacent? Did her words carry unspoken institutional weight? Could the crown be indirectly pulled into personal, political, or commercial matters through association alone? No one at the palace answered these questions directly, until now. With this statement, the ambiguity ended. Cleanly, publicly, permanently. Behind the scenes, reports suggest that Princess Anne played a key role in reinforcing this stance. Known within royal circles for her no-nonsense approach and deep respect for constitutional boundaries, she reportedly ensured that the message was echoed through diplomatic and institutional channels. The emphasis was simple but strict. Royal affiliation cannot be used as leverage. Not for business deals, not for media narratives, not for political positioning, and certainly not for personal branding. To outside observers, this moment may look harsh, but many royal commentators argue the opposite. This was not an act of retaliation or punishment. It was an act of containment. The monarchy, by design, survives on clarity, clear roles, clear rules, clear limits. Anything that blurs those lines risks pulling the institution into controversy it cannot afford. By stating what Meghan is not, the palace protected what the crown must remain: neutral, apolitical, and separate from private enterprise. In doing so, it also protected Prince Harry, royal staff, and even foreign governments from confusion about who speaks with authority and who does not. What makes this moment especially striking is how quietly it was done. No names were attacked, no accusations were made, no past grievances were reopened. The palace did not need to argue its case, it simply stated it. And in royal language, brevity often speaks louder than outrage. For years, the story revolved around what might still be possible: reconciliation, representation, residual influence. This statement changed the narrative. It was not about the past, and it was not emotional. It was administrative, constitutional, and final. In one short response, the palace did what it does best when it truly means business. It clarified the rules, closed the file, and moved on, leaving the world to finally do the same. Apart from the humiliation, was Meghan Markle affected in other ways? What implication will it have on her brand? Let's find out. The bigger picture. Commentators say the Dubai moment was not a one-off mistake or a simple misunderstanding. They describe it as a loud signal in a much bigger story, one that has been quietly building for some time. To them, what happened in Dubai was less about a single decision and more about a growing loss of confidence around Meghan's public image. For a while, Meghan's post-royal identity seemed clear and powerful. It was built around big ideas: empowerment, starting over, speaking truth to power, and standing on strong moral ground. She was no longer just a former royal. She was a symbol of reinvention. Many believed she would reshape celebrity influence, mixing fame with purpose and values. But over the past 2 years, that image has come under steady and sometimes uncomfortable examination. Slowly, the shine began to fade. Media watchers noticed that major partnerships, once announced with excitement, began to cool. Some high-profile deals were quietly reduced in scope, while others reportedly ended altogether. Projects that were expected to dominate headlines seemed to stall or disappear without explanation. While this is not unusual in entertainment and media, the pattern raised eyebrows. When several doors start closing at once, people begin to ask why. At the same time, charities and nonprofit structures linked to Meghan's name attracted attention for reasons no public figure welcomes. According to public records and press reports, regulators in both the United States and the United Kingdom raised questions about compliance and structure. These were not criminal accusations, but in elite circles, even routine regulatory scrutiny can cause discomfort. For institutions that prize clarity and order, unanswered questions, no matter how small, can feel like red flags. Then came the return of old stories. Former staff complaints, which had once faded from the news cycle, resurfaced. Past criticisms that had been dismissed or forgotten came back into public conversation, often louder than before. Social media amplified every claim, every rumor, and every negative interpretation. Fair or not, the overall effect was a growing sense of instability around the brand. Experts in reputation management often say that perception matters as much as reality. In high-level branding, especially in places that value discretion and predictability, even the appearance of chaos can be damaging. Analysts point out that organizations do not always wait for proof of trouble. Sometimes, uncertainty alone is enough to make them step back. Legal questions, financial ambiguity, or an unclear public narrative can quickly turn a once desirable partnership into a perceived gamble. This is the lens through which many observers interpret Dubai's response. They argue that Dubai did not snub a person or pass moral judgment. Instead, it assessed a profile and chose caution. Dubai, as a global hub for business, diplomacy, and controlled luxury, is known for protecting its image fiercely. The city welcomes fame, but only when it comes with reliability and low risk. Celebrity alone is never enough. In this view, Dubai's decision was not emotional or personal. It was strategic. Decision-makers likely asked simple questions. Will this association bring stability or controversy? Will it strengthen our image or complicate it? When answers are unclear, the safest move is often to say no. A Gulf commentator summed it up in blunt but revealing terms. This wasn't about celebrity. It was about stability. That single sentence captures the heart of the issue. In regions and industries where order, control, and long-term planning matter deeply, unpredictability is costly. Even global fame cannot outweigh the fear of reputational risk. For supporters, this interpretation may feel harsh or unfair. For critics, it confirms long-held doubts. But for analysts watching from a distance, the Dubai episode looks less like a sudden rejection and more like a visible crack in a story that has been quietly shifting. In their eyes, Dubai did not start the unraveling. It merely exposed it. What does the humiliating moment say about Meghan Markle's marital life? Why would she be left unprotected by the royal palace? Let's dive into the details of Meghan's strained marriage. Two visions, one collision. As pressure from the outside world continued to build, the focus slowly shifted from headlines and public backlash to something far more personal: the marriage between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle itself. What was once presented as an unbreakable partnership standing boldly against royal tradition is now being re-examined through a quieter, more complicated lens. According to insiders, quoted by both British and American media, the growing tension between the couple has little to do with scandal or betrayal. Instead, it centers on a deeper issue: direction. Those close to the situation describe a marriage strained not by drama, but by different ways of responding to the same reality. Prince Harry, they say, seems tired, emotionally worn down by years of public conflict, constant criticism, and the exhausting need to explain, defend, and reinvent himself. After walking away from royal life in search of peace and control, he now appears less eager to keep fighting the world. To some observers, Harry looks like a man who wants stability, privacy, and a quieter sense of purpose. Perhaps even a return to something simpler, if such a thing is still possible for him. Meghan, on the other hand, is portrayed very differently. Insiders suggest she remains deeply invested in visibility, influence, and global relevance. Where Harry seems ready to slow down, Meghan appears determined to push forward. New platforms, new audiences, and new opportunities are said to remain central to her thinking. In this telling, retreat is not an option. It is momentum that matters. Dubai, according to several reports, was meant to be part of that forward drive, a strategic move into a new space that promised luxury, global attention, and fresh possibilities. What has raised eyebrows, however, is Harry's apparent distance from these efforts. Reports claim he was not closely involved in planning the Dubai trip, a detail that has fueled speculation about how aligned the couple truly is behind the scenes. His lack of public comment afterward only added to the intrigue. To many royal watchers, his silence did not read as quiet support, but as emotional space, not defiance, just detachment. Behind the scenes, practical pressures are also said to be taking their toll. Financial expectations that once seemed limitless have reportedly tightened. High-profile deals have not always delivered as hoped, and the lifestyle the couple maintains requires constant income and attention. Questions around long-term housing, steady revenue, and future branding have, according to sources, added strain to private conversations. These are not small issues. They are the kinds of stresses that test even the strongest partnerships. What makes this situation especially striking is how far the couple has traveled from where they began. In the early days after leaving royal duties, Harry and Meghan presented a powerful image of unity. Two people standing shoulder to shoulder against an unfair system. determined to tell their own story on their own terms. That shared sense of mission seemed to bind them tightly together. But as time has passed and influence has proven harder to maintain, cracks, subtle but significant, appear to be forming. Analysts now suggest that the real divide is not about love, but about response. Both Harry and Meghan experienced the same fall from royal power, the same loss of status, and the same intense public scrutiny. Yet, they appear to be processing it in very different ways. Harry's response seems inward-looking, cautious, and tired. Meghan's appears outward-facing, ambitious, and still hungry for impact. This contrast has led many to wonder whether the couple is still moving toward the same destination, or simply walking side by side in different directions. What once looked like a single, unified front against the world now seems, at least to outside observers, like two individuals navigating the same storm with very different instincts. And as the pressure continues to mount, the question lingering in the background is no longer just about public image or career moves, but about whether shared purpose can survive when visions begin to drift apart. What lessons are there to learn from the disgraceful moment? What was said about Meghan's experience? Did she get people's sympathy? Let's dig into the details of Meghan Markle's expired authority. The verdict of power. At the center of this story is a difficult lesson about power in the modern world, one that many people misunderstand. Influence today is not just about fame, titles, or past associations. It is about permission. Symbolic power only survives for as long as powerful institutions choose to recognize it. Once that recognition is withdrawn, the symbol begins to fade. Critics argue that Meghan Markle may have misread this reality. There appeared to be an assumption that royal identity was permanent, something that could be stepped away from temporarily, then picked up again later, reshaped to suit new goals. In this view, the crown was not a structure with rules, limits, and expectations, but a brand asset that could be reused at will. The idea seemed to be, once royal, always royal. But the events that followed told a very different story. Dubai's quiet but firm refusal to engage was not just a social snub. It was a calculated decision made by a city that thrives on certainty, control, and carefully managed reputation. Dubai does not gamble with ambiguity. It aligns itself with figures who bring clarity, stability, and predictable value. When access was denied, the signal was subtle but powerful. This was not about personal dislike. It was about risk. Then came Buckingham Palace's public distancing, which removed any remaining doubt. This was not a coincidence. It was alignment. The monarchy and the marketplace, two very different systems, delivered the same message at the same time. Titles alone are not passports. History does not guarantee relevance, and former status does not entitle anyone to future platforms. Together, these moments shattered the belief that royal association could exist independently of royal duty. The palace made it clear that the distance was intentional. Dubai made it clear that neutrality was no longer possible. What remained was a gap, one where influence once stood. In the worlds of global diplomacy, elite business, and luxury branding, trust is everything. But more than trust, there must be predictability. People often assume scandal is the greatest threat to reputation. In reality, uncertainty is far more dangerous. Institutions can manage controversy. They can spin mistakes. They can even survive public criticism. What they cannot afford is unpredictability, especially when billions, alliances, and long-term planning are involved. By early 2026, this had become the core issue. Meghan Markle was no longer viewed simply as controversial. She was viewed as inconsistent, Her image had shifted from polished prestige to strategic uncertainty. And, in high-level spaces, uncertainty closes doors faster than any headline ever could. Luxury brands rely on control. Governments rely on stability. Royal families rely on continuity. When a public figure appears difficult to place, neither fully inside nor fully outside an institution, it creates confusion. And confusion is bad for business, diplomacy, and tradition alike. This is why the response was not dramatic, loud, or emotional. It was calm, quiet, final. No angry statements, no public arguments. Just a steady withdrawal of access. Invitations stopped coming. Associations cooled. The silence did the work. The larger lesson is not about one individual. It is about how modern power actually works. Influence is not something you own. It is something you are granted, renewed, and sometimes revoked. Titles do not function like personal property. They function like contracts. And when the terms change, so does the value. One media strategist summed up the moment with blunt honesty, cutting through years of speculation and noise. She thought leaving the palace would make the world chase her. Instead, the world watched and recalculated. That recalculation is the part many overlook. The world did not react emotionally. It reacted strategically. It assessed risk, measured benefit, and made decisions accordingly. And in doing so, it exposed a truth that is easy to ignore but impossible to escape. Influence without institutional backing is fragile, and prestige without predictability rarely survives. What kind of ties existed between UAE and UK? Did the embarrassing moment affect the relationship of these nations? Could Dubai really have acted based on the approval of the royal palace? Let's take a look at the friendship shared by these nations that goes beyond politics. How royal ties bind the UK and UAE. The relationship between the royal families of the United Kingdom and the United Arab Emirates is not just warm. It is deeply rooted, personal, and remarkably enduring. According to respected UAE historian and writer Peter Hellier, this bond goes far beyond the usual ties seen between two friendly nations. Instead of being limited to official meetings, treaties, or changing political interests, the connection has grown into a rare kind of family-to-family relationship, shaped by trust, respect, and shared history. Speaking to Khaleej Times some years ago after the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, Hellier reflected on how special this relationship truly is. Having closely watched the growth of UAE-UK relations for more than 4 decades, he expressed strong confidence that the friendship between the two countries would not only survive the Queen's death but continue to flourish under King Charles III. His confidence, he explained, is rooted in something far deeper than diplomacy. One of the strongest pillars of this relationship, Hellier noted, is the close bond between the British royal family and the UAE's ruling families, particularly those of Abu Dhabi and Dubai. This connection, he emphasized, was carefully built over time and nurtured through personal interactions rather than political negotiations. It is a relationship that has stood firm above shifting political landscapes and changing global priorities. At the heart of this enduring bond were two towering figures, Queen Elizabeth II and the UAE's founding father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. Together, they laid the groundwork for a friendship that would shape relations between their nations for generations. Queen Elizabeth played a key role in strengthening ties with the UAE's ruling families, engaging with them not merely as political leaders, but as partners and friends. Through this approach, the relationship grew into something far more meaningful than a standard government-to-government alliance. Hellier explained that this unique bond is different because it operates on a personal level. Governments may change, policies may shift, and political tensions may arise, but the family connection has remained steady. This personal trust has helped both nations weather challenges and maintain mutual respect even during uncertain times. Queen Elizabeth's visits to the UAE were especially significant in building this foundation. Known as the most widely traveled monarch in history, she made 2 historic visits to the Emirates, first in 1979 and later in 2010. These visits were not symbolic gestures. They were powerful moments that reinforced friendship, understanding, and mutual appreciation. Her presence in the UAE sent a clear message about the importance Britain placed on its relationship with the young nation and its leadership. Hellyer himself played an active role during both royal visits, giving him a unique first-hand view of how these interactions shaped long-term relations. He was also involved in the state visits made by Sheikh Zayed and later Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan to London. Through these exchanges, bonds were strengthened, traditions were shared, and a deep sense of mutual respect was reinforced. What makes this relationship especially intriguing is its resilience. While many international partnerships depend heavily on political alignment or economic interests, the UAE-UK royal connection has thrived on personal rapport and shared values. This has allowed it to rise above disagreements and remain strong through periods of global change. As leadership transitions from one generation to the next, the legacy left by Queen Elizabeth and Sheikh Zayed continues to shape the future. King Charles inherits not just a throne, but a carefully nurtured relationship built on decades of goodwill. For observers like Peter Hellyer, this history offers reassurance that the bond between the UAE and the UK is not only secure, but poised to grow even stronger in the years ahead. In a world where alliances often feel temporary, the friendship between these royal families stands out as something rare, deeply human, firmly rooted, and quietly powerful. So, what do you think about Meghan Markle's humiliating moment? Do you think the moment was planned by the monarchies? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.